Hello, class. This is Dr. Brown. I want to make sure you understand the assignment that requires you to generate or create an original model, and the model represents digital literacy in your mind, digital literacy in North Carolina schools. The first thing I want to point out to you, this is the uh, reading that's in our folder. There are two readings. This is one of the two in the folder for this assignment. And if I scroll down, here is there's a rubric in the grade sheet, but then also here's kind of a summary of the rubric. Your vision for digital literacy needs to be communicated within your model. Actually, the model is somewhat like an infographic because you're going to take a lot of information and you're going to synthesize it and reformat it to present it in a one visual image. Your model needs to reflect self-directed learners because that's really important for 21st century skills. Many times students, as you well know, are leaving school, graduating from high school, and they can't solve problems independently as well as they need to for the workplace and for college and university work. You need to have several concepts and ideas that we've looked at in this course. All parts of the model need to be readable, and that there is a relationship between the components of the model. Now, this is definitely a kind of a higher order thinking, very different than your assignment with reading the textbook and doing an open book test. This is the other end of the spectrum because you've got a lot of complex information. You need to read through it, organize it, analyze it, and then synthesize a new image representing digital literacy. So let's look at models and what that means. If I click here in the reading, this is going to take me to a website that has many models of instruction. These models are well known in the field of instructional technology or educational technology. You may have seen some of these if you are in the program and in some of your other courses. The ADDIE model is one. And you'll see how the ADDIE model is very simple, circular, and these are interconnected, beginning with analysis, and that's analysis of content. Then you design instruction, then you develop the instruction, you implement it in the learning environment, and then you evaluate outcomes. Very simple. But one look at that lets you know how the learning is being planned and delivered. There's several here, but one thing they all have in common is there is an interrelationship between all the parts. All the parts come together to make a whole, or at least they should. This one is kind of a sequential model. This is a classic, Gagne's 9 Events of Learning. It's not as interconnected as some of the other models, although it is sequentially. And same with Bloom's. One depends on another. You can't do synthesis without the base knowledge. So it is, again, kind of interconnected. And I wanted to come down. This is the one I'm the most familiar with because this is the one that I used when I was in my doctoral program. When I see this, I immediately know whose model this is. This is Morrison, Kemp, and Ross. Right here it's listed as Kemp's, but it just depends on what version of the book you have. But those three professors developed this model, and when I see this, it's like looking at the American flag. I know immediately what it represents. I know what each of the circles represent, and I know how it's all interrelated. So that's what is meant by a model. It's a lot of information that is analyzed, organized, and then reformatted to be presented with one infographic like this. So this is what's required for the assignment, and you will begin. Let's go back to the assignment folder. And again, this is assignment 6, lecture and instructions. Assigned reading is on visual literacy. And this is visual. Now, this is a little older. I think this is a couple of years old, but it's a model that represents what our state's vision is for digital literacy or literacy, but it includes the digital formats. And each part of this model has a special message to it. Over here in the right of your screen, that is the explanation of all of this. But a person, a teacher or a principal, should be able to look at it right away and be able to explain it to a group of colleagues in a school. They should know right off what each of these things represent. So that's an example of, that's their glossary, that's an example of this particular type of model. Now, for your assignment, you're going to create the model, and I will grade it right by the rubric. You do not need to write this explanation, elaboration as it appears here in this brochure. You don't need to do that for the assignment. The learning experience in this is entirely focused on your ability to put together this model and create an original one. And then this second one right here, this is the lecture for the assignment. And let me open that up, make sure you know. See, this is more of the instructions for the assignment here. So just those two things to read and any linked information. Now if I go back to the main folder, now here's another model that represents 21st century skills. Just an example of what, a model might be designed. If I go into the drop box, and you will see under the rubric how the points that are applied to each part of the evaluation. Formatting, I'll be looking at technical design. And this has to do with, I hate to use the word neatness, but yes, neatness, color contrast, the right size font, if it's a balanced model when it's displayed, those kinds of things. I'm going to look at those relationships across all the components. As I just showed you, for example, Gagne's 9 Events of Learning is a sequential organization. So was Bloom's taxonomy. But the Kemp-Morrison-Ross model was circular. You could enter the model at any point. I'll look at how well the message is communicated. Now that's the message within the model. And is it useful? I will be looking, and this is a kind of a value judgment on my part. Would it be useful if you were to take your model and display it on a bulletin board in your school, or if you were to add it to the school-wide website? So I'm going to look at that to see how useful it might be for your school. Now the final thing I'm going to show you is in my Flickr account, here's some models from earlier classes, and I just uploaded these. Some of them are just very appealing, attractive, well designed. Some have too much information, but better to have a little more than not enough. For example, let me see if I can find one that's a little bare and doesn't really communicate all that's needed. Let's see, I've got a few personal pictures or school pictures added to this. Probably, see, this one's a little bare. It doesn't really give the whole picture that we need for digital literacy based on your vision of digital literacy. This one right here is very good, but you can see it's not clean, and it's a little off balance, but that's a very minor problem. That wouldn't be half a point there. Let's see some others that really stand out. This is a good one because it's shaped like a flow chart, and flow charts are always interrelated. This one is like a logic model, and that also is always a good choice. This one's nicely done because it has a lot of good information, but it is uh, all displayed, all in there, and it's all legible. If I were to enlarge that, see, I'd be able to read everything on that particular model on that screen. So these were just a few that I wanted to point out to you that others had done in the 60/70 class in earlier semesters, going back really several years. If you have other questions, email me. I'll try to respond quickly. But just remember, due November the 28th, which is after Thanksgiving, you will submit that model, upload it to the Dropbox. Here's what I'll be grading on, and form the formatting, the tools that you use, any graphic tool, any multimedia uh, development tool that you would like to use, do so. Some of you may have had more experience with different development tools, like some of the Adobe tools. Some of you have had more experience than others. You can actually do this with let me open a new document. You could even, if you have less experience with some multimedia tools, you could create this with a Word file. This has tools in the Word file for developing simple uh, flowcharts and logic models. So you could do that if you'd like, or you can use more sophisticated tools. That's up to you. I have had one person to do a very nice model by hand, photograph it with their phone, and upload that. So I'd really rather you use some kind of a digital tool, but just use the tools that you're most comfortable with and upload those. Have a very nice Thanksgiving. I will be checking my email up until Thanksgiving Day. After that, I might not be able to respond as quickly until uh, towards the weekend or even next Monday. But I will be giving you plenty of feedback. You don't have to worry. We have time enough before grades are due at the end of the semester. So, again, have a nice holiday.